kick it off like we have done last week.
Of you just faffing around with technology.
Of me just loving the time difference. I reckon we just start. Let's just roll into it.
Sounds good, mate. Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, best place to start is probably the Tonga performance, really, wasn't it?
I think the best place to start is that we're starting it an hour late because you couldn't work out daylight savings. I reckon that's the best place to start.
Yeah, that's probably fair, isn't it, Charlie? Look, I hold my hands up. I didn't need to be told that there's a time difference, but thanks for letting me know. And then obviously I've calculated it incorrectly, but we all make mistakes, and I hope that my apology is enough, and you accept.
We're actually thinking about issuing a breach notice. Me and Charlie, we might issue a breach notice for being late. All right?
Yeah, not up to the buy-round standards. Yeah. Oh dear. Bollocks. Well,
how old are you actually, Jimmy? Because the way you carry on with technology and stuff, it's like you're not that old. You're 38? I'm going to go.
It's 39. It's not about technology. It's just a complete mess up on my behalf.
But you are also weak with technology. I mean, even like this, it took you 10 minutes to sort of jump on a video call. You can't read the clocks. Because also with daylight savings, you would just search, what's the time in Queensland?
No, I didn't need to search what's the time in Queensland because I'm in Queensland, so I know what the time is here. So all I need to do is look at the clock. So like I say, Charlie, that wasn't the issue. The issue was
you seem like more of a
thinking.
He's more of a
3 o'clock
guy.
Not a 1 o'clock. And in terms of technology, getting the call up, like I literally found out and then went into a panic and got ready inside of 5 minutes. Found the microphone, the mic sock, the headset, the little adapter. So don't be putting shit on me. It's not a technology. I was moving quickly, mate.
You strike me as more of an analog type clock guy than a digital. Is that true?
Well, you're talking about like the hands.
You know what I reckon Jimmy's got at home? You know how like you go to the doctor's office and there's like different clocks in different time zones? He's got like all the different clocks in the different time zones. New York, Beijing, everything ready to go.
And
London.
Yeah. Should we name some other cities?
Yeah.
Tonga.
Dublin. But although London and Dublin are the same, but I think it's good to know that, just be reminded of that fact.
The Pacific Championships though, Jimmy, you obviously watched that before you went to Queensland. Did you end up going to the game?
Yeah, I was at the game. What an atmosphere. I've obviously experienced that atmosphere that the Tongan fans generate when I was playing, but to actually, and then obviously heard it through the television screens, but honestly to be there, it was deafening. It was so good. It was such an experience. Congratulations to the fans that, when Katoa scored to start things off, like wow, I was right in that corner. It was going off. It was going absolutely off, and it was a privilege to be there and witness it firsthand.
Yeah, I actually did see that in the game when he scored. Like that whole corner was just going nuts, and it sounded so loud. So I'm glad I didn't go though, because I didn't want to be rubbed in that Tonga beat New Zealand last week anymore. I'm still a little bit sad about it, but what a game, and that first try, that Katoa to Katoa, that first try, and what a performance that Katoa, I don't know, Katoa had.
Is Katoa?
Not Sione, the other one.
Izzy
Katoa. He played so well.
And Isaiya Katoa. Is Katoa like the Smith of Tonga?
Yeah, they love to bang in the Katoas.
Yeah.
Just like us Smiths. I meant bang with your shoulders, boys. What do you mean? What are you talking?
No, he did play really well, didn't he? But I think the Aussies just had too much class. Geez, Tommy did, and I know we got man of the match. He was sensational. Just, you've got to be on edge when you defend against him. You can't afford to create little pockets for him. He was devastating. I think, arguably without Dearden, I don't know if Australia win. Like, he was involved in absolutely everything for them. He was sensational.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you can just see by the highlights, really. He had about 4 line breaks and set up a couple of tries, and he's just that guy that's always there. And, he did the same sort of thing for Queensland. He just, the amount of times he showed up, not only in attack, but in defence. And he deserves that Aussie jersey he got given at the end of the year this year. So we'll see what happens when Munster gets back. But he's making a nice claim to hold that jersey as his own.
Oh, yeah. Look, I think when Munster comes back, he has every right to walk straight back into that Queensland team and that Australian team. But I think it's a lesson for anyone when you come up against Tommy Dearden. Like you've got to be focused. If you're on an edge and you think you're going to shoot out of the line, you leave that person on your inside posted. He's just got too much speed and too much skill to get through that gap. He carries the ball in 2 hands, which is brilliant. Keeps you nice and on edge, keeps you guessing. It was brilliant, and the Tongan players that they kept allowing him to do it. I'm surprised, the message didn't get out there, or maybe it did. But it's easy to know how to defend against him, but very difficult to execute. He was sensational, like I've said.
Just back to Tonga for a second. Isaiya Katoa's performance, like I didn't realize he's only 20 years old. And he's with a makeshift spine. Leo Hapuata, who's played most of the year on the wing for Manly when he's played. Then you've got Lola Hia playing at 5'8", Havili playing at hooker, and Isaiya Katoa just marshalling that team around. 20 years old. I was watching that going, I think this kid's probably going to be the best player in the NRL one day. Like at his age to be doing what he's doing. Obviously Nathan Cleary's got that position at the moment, but when he starts to reach his prime around 25, 5 years time, he could be the guy that's the face of the NRL. He's that good.
No, I agree with you, Charlie. Like that's it. He's 20, and there's a lot of young halfbacks out there that get a lot of pressure put on them, basically because of the number on their back. We saw Sam Walker last year, who was sort of dropped in and out of the team at the Roosters, and now he's nailed on and agreed to an extension and looks to be another star of the game. But Katoa is no different than that, and I think the pressure that he's been under. In and out of the team at the Dolphins towards the back end. And, they're one of the teams that are in the mix for Ben Hunt, a rival in his position. Some people say they could play together, but still, it's another person coming into that halfback spot. He knew that. He was aware of that. And he stood up in one of the biggest games of the year there for Tonga. And that sends a message to not just his national coach, but that national coach is his club coach for next year as well. So I think... maybe Wolfie's looking at it through a different lens, through different eyes. And obviously what you want if you're the Dolphins is you want Katoa to do that week in, week out, which is difficult. And we all do, but that's where he's got to get to if he wants to nail down that 7 jersey and become one of the best players of the competition.
Yeah, well, you're completely right, Jimmy. And we all marvelled at how Lockie Galvin went this year and how young he was and how he played as a halfback. And everyone was so surprised about it, but Isaiya Katoa was not that much older. I think he's about a year older than him.
Yeah.
And he's doing this on the international stage, which is against the best put-together rugby league side on earth at right now. Against the Australian side, he pulls out a performance like that. I think they only lost by, 6 points against, a 20-year-old leading around a spine that, like you said, Charlie, makeshift spine. And I think it's a good sign that if Redcliffe can get a good forward pack behind their half, a really solid forward pack like their Tongan one does, Redcliffe can be a really, really good side next year. And it's a good sign to have the coach and from the Tongan team then going into the coach of the club team that Izzy's at. But yeah, I reckon it's a great sign for the young fella, and he'll just go in with a lot of confidence going into this next season ahead.
You mentioned Ben Hunt there, Jimmy. May as well get to the play move and stuff then, because Ben Hunt, obviously the Dolphins are a huge chance of getting him. They will play together, though, is what everyone's saying. It will be Ben Hunt and Isaiya Katoa side by side. But the other team that we spoke a bit about last week, but it seems to be generating more and more news, is the Sydney Roosters, cheese.
Mate, usually when there's smoke, there's fire. Wouldn't be surprised if I see Benny Hunt in a couple of weeks.
There is a lot of smoke now as well. The smoke is getting stronger and stronger.
I reckon there's a massive chance that he'll be there when I get it training.
Do you think? Yeah. Sorry, you go, Jimmy. You go.
I was just going to say, look, you say that about Katoa and Hunt arguably being able to play together, but not forgetting the job that Nick Arima did towards the back end. He was one of the Dolphins' best. I think for me, just looking at it, the signs all for me say point the direction of Ben Hunt to the Sydney Roosters. They've cleared space in their cap. Unfortunately they lost both Brandon Smith and young Sam Walker to horrible injuries that won't be back till mid-season. So, and obviously Luke Keary moving on, for me, it seems obvious is that's where he'll end up. And I know he has those links to Queensland. I can't see him going back to the Broncos. And I think for him, probably looking at it with respect to the Dolphins roster, he's looking at it and going, well, the Roosters, they normally deliver premierships. It's been a long time, well, by their standards, since they've even been in a grand final. So for me, I would imagine that the Roosters will be putting in a significant offer to secure Ben Hunt's services. I wouldn't be surprised to see him there either, Cheese.
It'll be interesting then, because obviously you've got to feel for Chad Townsend a little bit. He's come over there to be that backup half, and he's going to drop further down the pecking order there. He's obviously not on a great deal of money coming over, but when you guys are all back fit, do you think Sam Walker and Ben Hunt will work well together in the halves?
Well, it's a tough one. I had the opinion against the other way because I feel like they're both flawed generals, but with a bit of training together and a bit of, I guess, learning and adapting to one another's game, then yeah, I assume they can. Like, it's definitely possible. It's just whether it works is the question, and you will never know until I guess you're playing on the field or you're training on the training paddock whether that combination works. But it's something that you just got to sit back and wait. And yeah, I've never seen the Roosters really go after someone and miss them. They're pretty good at it, so we'll see. And it's all about what does it look like from here now. So that's in my opinion, of course. One
of the weaknesses you could say of the Roosters the last couple of years has been their long-range kicking game. And Ben Hunt's got a great boot in him. That's going to be an element of the attack that he'll bring in and improve the Roosters tenfold.
Yeah, you're spot on, Charlie. And in terms of like, can they play together? Well, we look at Keary, who's probably more of a 7 than a 6 in my eyes. He plays that sort of style. But Ben Hunt, all he needs to bring is his long kicking game and his running game, and that's it. But I've seen a multitude of halfbacks play together that have been similar styles. One of the classics is Cooper Cronk and Jonathan Thurston, two genuine 7s. They managed to do it for Queensland and Australia pretty successfully. So, look, I think if Coach Robinson is looking at it, addressing where his team needs improvement, it probably isn't that long kicking game, Charlie. And Ben Hunt brings that. He's got an excellent 40-20, which, probably the Roosters haven't been able to utilise. And just that kick on play 4 and bring that kick chase, it has been a criticism of the Roosters. And I think, eventually you hope that you do get to see that spine of a Tedesco, a Smith, a young Walker and a Ben Hunt. Like that starts to get Roosters fans excited and starts to get them thinking that they can take on this Penrith Panthers team, just like a lot of other teams will be looking to snatch the title away from them. I think the Roosters with that spine will really fancy themselves.
Yeah, and it'll be a new one because you haven't really seen a Roosters halfback with Ben Hunt's ability to run the ball, like his nous and his ability to break tackles. Like Luke Keary was very good at the punch line and really just attacking the line at speed. But Ben Hunt is very elusive, can break a lot of tackles. His short kicking game's great. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and I think it'll do favours. I think you'll tie up a lot of people that are on the inside more often than not because you've got to keep them honest. It's a bit like Tommy Dearden. You can't just rush up out of the line and try to break down the play because Ben Hunt will skin you just like Tommy Dearden would. And that's something I don't think the Roosters have seen for a while. So this would be really annoying if we talk all these nice things about him being at the Roosters and he doesn't get signed there. That'd be really frustrating. Turns out...
Do you know what's... It's strange that like both him and the Fox haven't been snapped up yet. Like I would have thought like that a deal would have been done before Ben asked for his release. I know he's been with Australia, but surely these deals don't take that long to get done. I think it's imminent, really. I'm with you, Cheese. Hopefully we don't talk like this and then, by the time this gets released, he's signed
with Goldie
somewhere random.
The other big name on the market then, boys, probably the hottest name on the market in terms of how many clubs are in for him is Terrell May. And you've got now the Bulldogs, the Tigers, the Dragons and the Eels all very, very interested in signing him. He's a great mate of yours, Cheese. I'm sure he'd be a great buy for any of those clubs.
Yeah, he will be. And I don't think he's too worried. I think he's more about counting how many zeros are on the back of those contracts is what his real problem is. But I think, speaking to him, I think Jimmy, he said because he's been listening to all his podcasts, that his dad's been sending him clips of our podcast, and he actually texted me he's going to do Jimmy a favour and go to the Bulldogs. That's actually what he said to me. He's like, James Graham's my guy. I'm going to go to the Bulldogs for him. But yeah, I think it looks likely that it's either Para or Bulldogs are the definite two, in my opinion. And talking to him and listening what he's got to say, unless Dragons come, to the table with more zeros. Yeah.
Well, I think that the Tigers have entered the race, and rightly so. Like, he will get his head turned because there's going to be any club that needs a middle forward and an aggressive one and one that can play, mix it with the best of them, and also have his best years ahead of them are going to be interested in him. Like, he's been phenomenal at the Roosters already. In my opinion, like I think I said last week, had already signed on what I would consider unders for that 2-year extension. So he'll go to market, like you said, Cheese, and the clubs will be saying, well, we can give you more than that. So it might end up being a bit more. But then again, is that what you want? Are you playing for your zeros, or are you playing for an opportunity to go and win? And obviously, for me, I think he can do that at the Bulldogs. One of the little criticisms of the Dogs were they missed that big alpha, and he would certainly be that. I'd love to see him at Canterbury. He's been a sensational player for a number of years now, and hopefully the Bulldogs can land him. But you can see why Benji Marshall has gone to meet him. Obviously news of the standards there at training, and they're a little bit light in the middle with losing Big Stefano to Melbourne Storm. So there'll be plenty of clubs looking at Terrell May.
If he does go to the Eels, could be a huge buy for them. I mean, we spoke about them losing Regan Campbell-Gillard a few weeks ago, but I mean, what Riles is doing there already with cleaning house, but then bringing in, great players in there as well. If he could get someone like May, that would be a huge, huge sign for them. And the reality is, boys, you talk about him chasing zeros, he's going to get a pay rise no matter where he goes. He's going to be getting $600,000-700,000 a year, which is awesome for him.
Yeah, I bet he's not complaining.
The other one, boys, that has made news this week, the Mole. The Mole, Tony Adams on Wild World of Sport. He broke a report about the NRL considering kickoff changes where basically it'll be a 7-tackle set if the kick lands behind the attacking 20-metre line. My understanding is that this report's incorrect and it's not actually going to happen, but it has made headlines everywhere with every other media outlet picking it up, and it's gone crazy. Just quickly, boys, let's talk about it. Even though I don't think this is going to happen, what do you think first, Jimmy, about the potential rule change?
Well, look, it won't happen, this modification, because it'd just be a gimmick. It wouldn't serve any purpose, in my opinion, because, and I'll use the example of Lindsay Collins, who was quoted about, my aim as the front rower is to get to the 10-metre line. So if I get to the 10-metre line, that's a win for me, or I get over the 10-metre line, that's a win for me when I'm carrying the football, versus when I'm defending, I'm trying to pin them behind the 10-metre line. So there's your marker of what a successful kickoff looks like for both the attacker and the defender. So if you incentivize the play to have one extra tackle, I don't think you win much ground when you say, okay, well, it's got to bounce before the 20. So if you bounce it or land it, you'd need to land it on like the 22. Well, that's 6 tackles from there. You're in a better position to kick it deep and keep them inside the 10 from play 1, as opposed to kicking it the 22. I would also argue that when I was playing myself, that when a player sort of didn't kick it deep and kicked it into that sort of what I would describe as like that real rubbish area of it's not short, it's not long. They're the hardest tackles to execute. Can you imagine? So someone messes that kick up and it lands on the 20, and then you've got the big front rowers coming from the back fence. That's a 30-meter run up when they catch the ball. I think that arguably causes more potentially causes more damage if that kickoff goes wrong.
Yeah, it puts them on a more vulnerable position.
Exactly, Cheese. I don't think it works, and even you know, I've heard the argument about future litigation. Well, you know, and the argument around, well, if in 20, 30, 40 years the NRL is taken to court and ask the question, could you have changed those long kickoff laws? Well, the answer is yes, we could have changed them. We could have changed a lot of things in our game to make it, quote unquote, potentially safer or reduce the impact of concussions. Well, you can also say to I think it would be the claimers or the people involved in the class action, could you have stopped playing? You could have stopped playing, couldn't you? Well, yes, you could have. I think for me, it's now about the management of concussion, which is as best as it's ever been and continues to be researched, thoroughly investigated. We've got new protocols in place. So for me, that's where it's at. I don't know if this was a move or any move to modify the long kickoff would be in and around future litigation. It's about maybe participation numbers. And also, Charlie, like, look, I want to see it stay. I do. But I also accept that it's not my game. Like, the NRL isn't mine. I prefer it, but then if the people at head office think that they need to make it arguably safer or the optics of it safer, then that's something I've got to accept. I'll still watch it, and I think most of us would still watch it if they took the long kickoff, or they banned it, or they adjusted the rules. Maybe they make it an 8 tackle set or a 9 tackle set, whatever it may be, to de-incentivize that long kick. But I've got to accept that maybe it's not about people like me that want to see that high-end collision or that potential for destruction, the potential for the big hit, the thing that goes wrong. Like, for us, there is a level of an attraction, but I know for a lot of people that there's a level of, well, I don't want my son or daughter associated with that game. I actually spoke with somebody a couple of days ago around, you know, oh no, I would never let my son play, and you know, well, that's fine, but you know, I'd argue that there are benefits to playing team sport, a sport like rugby league. It's a sport for everyone. Also, it's a sport for anyone, but it's maybe not for everyone to actually play the game at the level of the NRL or to play the full contact sport. We've got lots of variations, but I don't know. It's the whole kickoff thing. I don't know what a sensible alternative is, and I'll take you back to the example at Manly where Kohler, when Manly played the Roosters and Kohler was knocked out executing a tackle, like their very next play, which was a set restart, Jakey Trbojevic was basically knocked out as well. So if you started with just a run, like, how far can you go? Can you just ban running hard? I mean, I don't know.
The reality is, though, like what you just spoke about then is the game isn't for everyone, though, as well. And if you polled the fans, I reckon 99.99999% of fans want the kickoff to stay. And the kickoff's a huge part of the game. That first kickoff in a big game is maybe one of the true highlights of a rugby league game. That first hit.
Charlie, I'm playing a bit of devil's advocate here and arguing against myself, but I think you're right that most of the fans that would take the survey, most of the fans that go to the game, most of the fans that watch each and every game, but the NRL have already got those nailed on. So they look at like other fans that they can bring to the game, or other fans that maybe have children that aren't participating. So how can we bring them on this journey? What they're the people that they'd survey. They're the people that they'd want to ask the question of, why aren't you watching the game? Why aren't you allowing or choosing to allow your sons or daughters to play this game? And one of the things that they would say is, it's too rough, it's too violent. Look at things like the kickoff. Like, we had unfortunate examples in the finals last year that make headlines. So that scares people. So maybe that's where they're looking at. How can we bring those people on this journey with us to this great game? We'll still please all the nailed-on fans. We'll adjust it a little bit and bring those people along with us. And unfortunately, Charlie, like, I have to admit that the game has now become a business, and a competitive business against rugby union, against AFL, against soccer, against cricket. We're fighting for everything we've got.
But how many more eyeballs does rugby league need? It was probably, I think it was the most watched sport on KO and Foxtel this year. So who else are you trying to bring in? Because if you get rid of the kickoff, it's still a violent sport. So those people who don't like violent sports aren't going to start watching it because the kickoff's gone. They don't like tackles. They don't like any of that sort of stuff, those people. So to then change the rules to try and get more eyeballs on the sport is madness when it's already the most watched sport in Australia. Yeah,
Charlie, I agree with you, but in the industry that we're in, it's never good enough. But we're looking for perfection. We're looking for the ultimate, and that's in the coaching industry, the playing industry, the media industry. Everyone wants more, and that's not a bad mindset to have. So I'm just saying maybe that's why they're looking at making adjustments.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think it's the stupid idea, and it's not the first time the Mole's probably reported something that's not true. So,
he misses a fair bit sometimes, the Mole, doesn't he?
He misses a fair bit, but it's weird to think. I think NFL, they changed it the complete opposite way. Yeah. In a sport that's got the most, probably arguably the worst track record on concussions and how players have dealt with that, and CTE, and they've gone the opposite way. They now encourage the kickoff, which is I don't understand what the point in the NRL trying to go the other way is. It's now in NFL now, if you kick the ball short enough, you have to run the ball back. So that a lot of the teams are encouraged to kick the ball short, so you can't just take a knee and there's no collision, and there's more entertainment in the ball getting returned and possibly getting returned for a touchdown off a kickoff. So I see and no country in the world, I don't think, does sports really better than America. And if that's the way they're seeing it, and the entertainment value is on the kickoff and the kick return, and for me as a person, as a fan of rugby league, not just a player, but when you watch Origin, the first game of Origin of the year, and the anticipation you get when there's a kickoff about to happen and the biggest guy's about to run it, the biggest five guys in the other team, that you live for that. It's a little drug you get watching the game of rugby league, and for that to be taken away, it doesn't really sit well with me.
Oh, geez, I'm with you 100%. In any game that I get to go and watch or commentate on when I'm at the ground or in a studio, it's like, who's going to take the first run? Or they kick left, that means it's that guy. Or it's that guy who's standing on the right. Okay, who's the 15 defender? Who's the back row that side? Or they're the two that are going to go and get some action. It's like it gets me standing out my chair. It really does, and because the potential for something bad could happen, and that's okay. I think it's okay to admit that, and that's why we like it, is because potentially something bad could happen. And even when I used to play, I've said this before, it used to put me on edge because something bad could happen, like the feeling in your stomach, when you stood there, you go, something, I hope it doesn't, but that sort of made me feel alive, thinking something could go drastically wrong here. Thankfully, it didn't, but it's like that sense of danger attracts a lot of people to the game. But again, it's not
for everyone.
Maybe it's not about me. Maybe, and even it's funny. When I saw some of the interviews or some of the responses from Spencer Lenu, Lindsay Collins, there's no front rower out there now. Like you can't ask them because it's pointless. None of them are going to say, yeah, I think you should make it safer. Like Lindsay Collins said, it's my job. Like it's part of loving what I do. Even though he was knocked out, there's not a front rower in the competition that would say, oh yeah, I want to get rid of it, because you can guarantee every kickoff will be going to them.
He's retired now, but maybe Aaron Woods, he'd like to see the kickoff gone, especially if he's taking the kickoff carry.
We'll pick up just on the Tigers. 5 players have been, I guess, summoned to the club to explain why they didn't meet the standards that they had allegedly agreed upon before they left. What have you made of this? I don't think we know who those 5 players are, but for me, my initial reaction is like, good on the Tigers.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's you've got somewhat a standard to come back within, after your off season and some sort of condition you've got to be back in. Like, I'm not going to come out and tell you that I'm going to go into the Roosters in the best condition I've ever been, but at least good enough condition that they want me to be in. I'm sure at the end of the season there would have been targets set and there would have been goals that you had to achieve, and there would have been training schedules sent out to not follow to a T, but you would have to follow a little bit of that training schedule and come back in a condition where, is acceptable. And these goals, they're not just at the Storm. Those goals aren't just goals that are like written down like, oh, maybe you should get this. This is where we want you at, and this is where you should be at when you come back to training. And they're not unrealistic goals. They're not targets that are just like impossible to achieve if you do 2 to 3 weeks of training before you come back into shape. And obviously it's not like they've just missed these targets by 1 or 2 like repetitions, I'm assuming. Say it's a beep test, they're not getting the targets 13, 14, they're not getting 13, 8, you know what I mean? They're probably missing these targets by a good couple of levels to be handed down a breach notice like this. And it puts everyone at notice. It means we mean business by this. So
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Cheese. We mean business and we stand for something here. So if we tell you an instruction, then you keep to it or you're going to be punished. And obviously, the landscape of training might look different when we look at some of the potential lawsuits that could be up and coming. But then you look at what the Tigers have done and said, well, no, we're not going to allow this. We agreed on a standard of training. Like you say, Cheese, it in all likelihood, it's an achievable standard. You're given 8 weeks break to refresh mentally, physically, emotionally, go on holiday, but you are a paid full-time athlete to come back in a condition that is acceptable to hit the ground running day one, because you could make an argument it's damn dangerous if you don't come back in some sort of shape. If you don't come back at that level, it becomes dangerous.
Exactly. If you've gone 8 weeks without moving your legs and you go straight into preseason training, which is 6 days a week of constant hard, you're going to get injured. Like, it's just facts. If you haven't conditioned your body at least the tiniest bit, you're going to get injured. And if you haven't done gym, you're going to get DOMs. You could probably tear muscles. Like, it's not just guidelines like, oh, make it this back and we'll be happy. It's some sort of effort to come back in a condition that not only is going to be safe for you, but it's going to help this club keep you on the paddock for as long as possible.
Well, and also let's not forget, what is it, 3 wooden spoons in a row that they've finished the season with. Like, they've got to change something. And maybe in the past they've looked at the shape that the players return to the NRL in terms of like the start of preseason. They've looked at that and gone, but boys, we're starting behind the 8 ball. So no wonder we can't do our X's and O's. No wonder we can't do our field sessions, because we're having to commit, 4, 6, 8 weeks to get you up to speed with your conditioning. We want to get out there and see that you guys are fit. Okay, that's not a priority, because there's only so much you can do in a training day, a training week. You can't do everything all the time, 100 miles an hour. You just can't. You just don't have the ability to do that. So, boys, come back fit, and then we don't have to waste time getting you up to standard from a fitness point of view, and we can actually hit the ground running and do some game plan stuff, because quite clearly it's not, our level of performance hasn't been good enough for God knows how long since Benji's been involved in the club in a coaching capacity, and maybe he's just looked at that and gone, boys, I've had enough. And if you're not, and I support his right to do that. Like, each player's got their case to make, and no doubt the RLPA will be involved, and who knows, lawyers and all that, if there's moving on of players. But I back the clubs that have this line in the sand, or this standards that need to be met, and they demand their players meet. I'm with them.
Yeah, I find it sort of, if I'm Benji Marshall, I find it disrespectful on the players, on the players' behalf. You with 3 wooden spoons in a row, new coach, like, and you're going to come back out of condition. It begs the question: do you really want to play this game? And what do you want to play for? Do you want to play it because it looks cool and you want to make money, or do you want to play it because this means something to you and you want to win championships and you want to do great things in this game? Because obviously that is just not what it's telling me. And it's a senior player, like, I'm sure Api Kurosau wasn't one of the 5 players, but a senior player like Jerome Luai, Api Kurosau, what are they thinking as well? Are they thinking the same things? Are these the players that we need around? Are these the players that are going to help me win games and not be wooden spooners? Like, it's quite disrespectful, and rightly so, for the multiple breach people that they should be facing the board, and they should be, in my opinion, they should be cut. Like, I'm not going to be a nice guy about it, but you can't have 3 years in a row, and that's not motivation for you to want to come back and put your best foot forward for this team and for Benji as the new coach. Like, yeah, it kind of pisses me off, to be quite honest with you, Jimmy.
Cheers, you're 100% correct. It is disrespectful. It's a slap in the face to the whole organisation to say, like, we agreed on this and you failed. You failed on something, on a variable that is in your control, and totally and utterly in your control to not fail this variable. Here's that standard that you could go and do the test yourself the week before, 2 weeks before, to see where you're at, and just make sure you get it done, whatever that test was. And it is just going to be interesting to see the fallout from this and see where it goes in terms of what that breach looks like. Do the Tigers have like an ability to cut them? I know in like American sports, you do have that. I don't know if they would. Like, are they handed a breach notice that's like a first warning? I guess we'll see. Just to finish up, Cheese, before we get into the questions, it appears as though Laurie Daley is now emerging as one of the front runners for the New South Wales coach. What are your thoughts on this? It's an interesting back to the future switch if they go with him. I thought they would have gone with some fresh blood. Nothing against Laurie Daley. He was up against those amazing Queensland teams when he was in charge there, but I thought they may have gone with fresh ideas.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Obviously, it's a hard decision for New South Wales to make. I mean, you're going to go back and, like you said, back to the future. I'm going to go back in time and bring back a guy that didn't have a lot of success at all. And I in my opinion, I don't really care what they do, being a Queenslander. But if that's the direction they want to go on, it's a strange one rather than blooding a new guy and bringing him in and giving him another shot at it. I think, how long did Laurie spend? Close to 8 years?
Charlie will be able to answer that. But I heard Gus Gould say there's probably only 3 people and they're all at Clubland. I know it's doable for like an Ivan Cleary, a Ricky Stewart or a Coach Bellamy like Gus has called for. I know it's doable, but try convincing the people that pay them their contracts. I just don't think they would enter into discussions. I think they would shut it down. I think the Panthers would say no. I think the Melbourne Storm would say no. And I think Canberra, maybe had they had a bit more experience in their playing roster, they've got a lot of young kids that probably can't afford to have their main mentor, their main head coach going away on such a significant task. He will be is distracted beyond what I think is fair to expect of a coach at Canberra that's got such a good young crop of players coming through. So, look, I thought Mary McGregor had him at the Dragons, absolutely sensational coach. For me, he's the one that stands out in the mixer for that. But I think one thing's for sure, New South Wales, they need to get an appointment made very soon. I think Matt King might be in the mix as well. I heard Dean Pay. But I think one thing's for sure, they've had enough time now to assess the candidates and who wants it, do the interviews. They've just got to get it done. Cheese, we'll get on to the questions. You're going to be putting them to us.
We've actually just been told by producer Charlie that the questions are no good and the listeners aren't doing a very good job of sending them in.
You reckon that the listeners haven't given us good enough questions? I'm not accusing our listeners of that. That's you and Charlie's work. I don't have the ability to witness the questions. So
the truth is, we actually didn't put the question box up. Is the real story? So it's not the listener's fault at all.
Oh, so it's producer's fault.
It's mine and Anthony's fault. The two of us together.
Oh, so you two were into me?
Yeah.
About messing up a solvable problem that we just all get, and yet you guys have messed up and. Oh, look, what you hear from you see, I'm a good teammate, Charlie. It's okay, mate. We all make mistakes.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. We did have it up, but when you were late, we actually deleted it because we thought we were going to have to skip the show. So that's the real story, So it's actually your fault.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. I'll be back in studio next week to sort out this rabble that has been Charlie White, producer Tony, and Brandon Smith.